Welcome to Rhythm of Previews, where we check out the preview chapters of Rhythm of War, the 4th Stormlight Archive novel. I am Danielle with the 17th Shard.
Hi, I'm Marvin.
Hello. So, of course, Rhythm of War spoilers ahead. We'll dig in with the annotation for chapter 17.
Yeah, so some of you might have been wondering where the annotation even was could be found, because Brandon took a little longer this time to write it, but in true Brandon fashion, he wrote a really long post now and posted it on Monday, on like the day before chapter 18 now dropped. And he talked, because he wanted to talk about the topic a lot more in depth. And basically, the annotation is all about Yasna and her sexuality, and her sexuality in particular. And you can find a link to the annotation, as always, in the description of the video. And you should definitely go check it out yourself and read it, all of it, because it's really informative. But if you don't want to find anything out about Yasna's sexuality or how she stands on relationships, just skip ahead a little right now. It's also spotted in the annotation, so if you don't want to know, you can still read it. And anyway, the basic gist of it was, of that section of the post was that Brandon canonized basically that Yasna is asexual but hetero-romantic, so that she's not necessarily interested in intimate contact with somebody or like sexual relationship with somebody, but she, if she were to be in a relationship, she'd prefer to be with a man. Is what that means, basically. And I'm grossly oversimplifying here. Look into those terms if you aren't quite sure about those. But Brandon also acknowledged that this might disappoint a lot, or some people who expected her or Yasna to be either homosexual or bisexual. And Brandon did consider writing her as one of those two options, but he felt that it didn't feel right for the character to him, so he eventually decided to instead go with this. For instance, he would have felt it to be disingenuous if Yasna as a bi character was still in a relationship with a man is what he would have planned for her, and so he didn't want to go for that. But he did confirm that there definitely will be LGBTQIA+ characters somewhere in the Stormlight Archive or the Cosmere, and it's even going to be some main viewpoint characters, so that's definitely something to look forward to instead.
When that came out, I was very happy to read it. I've always been in the Yasna's ace camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've always felt that way about her, which is okay for me. It is nice to know that she's going to be in a relationship. I mean, It's kind of been a given in his spoilery part, but that's something to kind of look forward to see her and someone else interacting. Yeah, I'm a-okay with this. And I really like that he didn't want to just make one token character, and he doesn't want to, make a bisexual character be in a relationship, in a hetero relationship, like all of his characters are, or anything like that. So I'm a-okay with this. I really like that he's taking his time and he's trying to get it right.
Yep, definitely. And just in general, it's nice to finally have this sort of issue resolved, because like Brandon said himself, people felt it was to be a mystery or stuff like that when it really just didn't want to address it yet. And so that this mystery is now finally resolved is just good to have that out of the world, and instead of focus on other more important aspects of the character, maybe.
Yeah. Sorry to the shippers, but
I mean, you can still do whatever you want in shipping.
That's the beauty of shipping.
Yep.
You just ignore everything and do whatever your heart desires. Alrighty. So let's get into this epigraph for chapter 18. The summary of this epigraph is basically the fused weapons are made of a unknown metal that conducts stormlight in conjunction with an empty gemstone. And Navani scholars posit that the gemstone creates an investiture differential. basically like a vacuum to pull in stormlight from a radiant.
Yeah, that's it's good to know that apparently the metal on the spear is not the same as the one she talked about last time. I mean, a metal conducting stormlight, I feel like, and like how the spear is, I think it was described as being sort of like a shard, but in that it's not easy to break or anything like that. So I feel like some god metal shenanigans are going on here, and who knows what exactly it is, but it's like just really interesting to see a metal conducting stormlight. That's.
I'm not really sure if they don't know what the metal is or if they just didn't mention it in this epigraph. Not they, Navani. And then we know that it's like a silvery, which is why we were thinking, oh, maybe aluminum, because every time we see silvery metal that's not named, it's usually assumed to be aluminum. So it's kind of nice because now whenever we see a sort of silvery metal, we can kind of assume that that is this new metal that they're talking about.
Yeah, I suppose it probably might be rasium or odium. So I mean that like just it would make sense for Odium to have access to that, to his own god metal, but could also be something entirely different.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a god metal at all. Who knows? Like it's like
it could be some kind of alloy or something.
Actually, could it be? Is chromium are the leechers? I think in allomancy, so maybe it's a chromium alloy at least. I don't know like the metallurgic properties of chromium, but I could see that maybe.
I don't remember which metals were more silvery than the others, so I was trying to like think of all the different kinds, but yeah, chrome definitely would work. But I don't think that that's a very strong metal. That wouldn't be good for a weapon.
It's some form of alloy. But yeah, I mean, also just in general, a metal conducting investiture, that's like, I feel like that's probably going to be part of the key to like really creating circuits with Stormlight, and I don't know, using logic spren fabrials for doing logic with them, and like, definitely going to see more of that.
Yeah, from a modern standpoint, looking back, be like, yeah, this is not the natural next step. And so it'll be fun to see them like discover that. That'll be fun.
Yep.
All right. Chapter 18 is called Surgeon, a Kaladin chapter. So Kaladin takes the Oath Gate back to the Shattered Plains. He's flying back to the Fourth Bridge, where he meets with all of the refugees. He and his family arrive at the tower later on. It takes an hour for them to get from the Shattered Plains in the Fourth Bridge. And then Kaladin is showing them to their new home that he got for them with a balcony. Kaladin surprises Liren with a fully stocked surgery, and Liren explains to Kaladin that he feels a little useless now because of the Radiant's ability to heal. But Kaladin is quick to reassure him that he's still very much a necessary person because the Radiants are both few in number and they have limitations to what they can do. And then Kaladin finally gets up the willpower to tell his father about his different path in life. And as he's telling him, Liren kind of jumps up and says, see, I'm right. He says, you finally understand I've been right. You're going to become a surgeon like we always dreamed. And that's about where it ends.
Yeah. So finally have confirmation for that little storyline, I guess. It's interesting. But starting from the beginning, what I was wondering there, like Kaladin was thinking about, like it has been 4 weeks since he retired from the military, and he talks about how Zixil is the company commander now, and that Teft apparently still doesn't feel comfortable in positions of power, which, I mean, it sort of fits his character in general because he's always like this grumpy guy who doesn't want to lead. But it makes me, I hope he managed to get over some of his issues with like the fire moss and stuff like that. He's not that bad off anymore.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the Bridge 4 like originals, if their storylines are going to be just little snapshots, but we're not really going to hear very much about them in this book because they're all kind of going in different directions, you know?
Yeah, maybe he'll do something a little like Oathbringer, where he has viewpoint chapters from some of them. Could see that happening, but in general, it does feel like, and he talked about it in one of the annotations, Brent talked about it, that he's stepping or sort of having Bridgeford dissolve as the group they were. So I feel like we're obviously still going to see the characters, but they definitely take less of a prominent role. Kaladin also thinks like in that way, and he also thinks about what he'll do next after his retirement. And apparently Dalinar still wants him to become an ambassador, which to me it's like really weird. Why would Kaladin doesn't strike me as a real people person, so having him as ambassador might not be the best idea.
Well, I feel like he is actually a people person, but he's not very diplomatic. So, because he is a natural, like, charismatic leader, like people want to be with him. He inspires them, and you see that even from the very beginning, like some of his first chapters. So, maybe Dalinar kind of sees that in him, you know, wanting to take advantage of that. And then also, since he's originally, you know, Dark Eyes, and Dalinar's kind of trying to change the way things are, maybe he's also wanting to maybe give Kaladin a little bit more power as an ambassador.
And I guess Dalinar actually is a perfect example for somebody who is more of a warrior, maybe, who isn't that diplomatic, who is now in a position where he fits very well into it. And I mean, I guess it's part of his Bondsmith stuff as well, but yeah, I guess he could have been an ambassador, but it still would have felt weird to me. I just can't imagine that one Nathan ambassador in Aunak, I think is his name, in one of the books. He's a very different person. I don't feel like Kaladin would. He'd feel very frustrated very quickly with these other proper diplomats.
Probably get a little hot-headed with them. Keep them on their toes. But, you know, we see later on in the chapter when Lirin is talking to Kaladin, and he's like, oh, you can do this. And it's kind of the same that Dalinar is doing. Like the two dads, they're trying to lead Kaladin into their idea of what he wants to do. And I mean, they obviously did give him choice and everything, but they're being a little pushy about it. So I can see that with Kaladin thinking about what Dalinar wants him to do, and then thinking about what Lirin wants him to do. Kind of sad for him.
Yeah, it is. I feel like at the very end where Lirin sort of makes the decision for Kaladin, for one, that moment itself felt weird to me, but also I don't know how I want to feel about Kaladin being back together with Lirin in like this sort of trainer-trainee sort of relationship. It definitely won't be going back to what they were like when Kaladin was still a child. I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. Well, I really didn't like Lirin's whole "I told you so" thing. Like, Kaladin worked up all of this effort to finally admit to his dad, and then he's like, "See, I told you. This is what we wanted, and you just had to see that for yourself," and all this. So, it kind of made me feel a little worried about how this relationship is going to keep going. You know, Kaladin is like, yes, I'm going to work on being a surgeon again. I'm going to go through the training again. And Lirin's like, told you so.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
going to have a weird dynamic between them.
Yeah, definitely. Just in general also, Kaladin now, like, they have such a different outlook on life at this point. I feel like Lirin is still in a lot of ways like he was earlier, but Kaladin went through a lot of development and has changed a lot of his views, probably. Like the way Hisina is sort of shocked a little how disobedient Kaladin acts towards Light Eyes, but I mean, technically he is one. And I feel like Lirin also always did that to some extent, but I think he still has a lot more respect for the lighters than Kaladin probably has. And yeah, the dynamic is definitely going to be one.
It's almost like Lirin has more respect for his place's dark eyes than he does for the light eyes being in power.
True,
like we have our place, and this is where what we're doing.
Yep.
And then when Hesina was talking to him about like, I wonder where you got that from. Like she was definitely talking about Lirin, but I mean, she might have had a little of that in his upbringing on her own shoulders.
Yeah,
she's pretty outspoken and.
Yeah. And I mean, there's still, like, we have WOPs on Hesina. There's more to her heritage than meets the eye at the first moment. So I feel like, yeah, she has a special relationship with Light Eyes. Let's just say that. It's definitely both of them expressing themselves in Kaladin, I guess. And yeah, but I really love the banter there. Like when they talk, yeah, you like Lirin doesn't take it seriously, he just jokes back, and that's good to see that there's still an intact family.
Yeah. Well, joking is a strong word. that whole thing was really funny when she was telling Syl that, they took his heart out and replaced it with a clock so he can see how much time everybody's wasting. And he's just like, I don't need a clock to see how much time everybody's wasting. And poor Syl is like, what? You have a clock? I thought that was really cute.
Yep. Just Syl and Hesina, especially in general, together are just so awesome, and like how she sits on Hesina's shoulder as well, and like I feel like those two really get along well, and it also was like when he was back in, or when they picked them up in Hearthstone, they were talking about how Kaladin messed it up with Lyn, and it's just.
Yeah, and then also we see that Kaladin and Syl were preparing the home for them, and he was, getting all the things for the surgery, and Syl's like, well, I picked out the toys because Kaladin would have probably bought him a spear or something dumb. I thought that was really cute too. And she was like really excited to make a little space for Oradin and even for Hesina. Like she was very proud of that. And so it's really cute that she's accepting them as part of Kaladin's family. It was really fun to see that. It's almost like Kaladin showing his girlfriend to his family or something, but instead of a girlfriend, it's his friend.
Oh, definitely. Like, there's a lot of that there, and especially like how she thinks of Oradin, and like how she prepared the room for him. It's really adorable, and I think it might have something to do with like Spren. They don't really have children. Like they do have, they like how Syl explains, they go away and come back with another Spren. But I find it's probably really fascinating for them as well to see like a little human being just being a little human being.
Yeah. And probably a baby or a toddler acts a very similar way as Syl sometimes, very curious and has kind of a wandering mind. And that's probably really fun for Syl. They kind of learn things about the world together.
Yeah. As long as Oradin won't put a rat in Kaladin's food, I think.
Right.
That'd be great, yeah.
Although I could definitely see that happening too.
Yeah.
Poor Kaladin and boots, man.
Yeah.
He always has problems with boots.
That he does, yeah. But like we also obviously have to talk about them arriving at Eurythia in the first place. And first of all, the journey on the fourth bridge took more than 4 weeks, apparently. And like they said something to that effect earlier, but actually seeing it taking that long is like, wow, that is a long time for like the distance from Hearthstone to the Shattered Plains isn't that long. So 4 weeks seems like a really long time, but And it just makes me wonder how quickly they'll develop faster methods of airborne transportation, I guess.
Well, it was an interesting comparison, like juxtaposing Kaladin using the Oath Gate, which was instantaneous, and then he lashes himself and flies. So the magical transportation is so fast, and the technological transportation is a lot slower. So it's kind of showing that the technology is not quite up with the more mystical ways of doing things quite yet.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess like it is a really convoluted form of transportation with like the Charles drawing the I guess weights and stuff like that. I hope they come up with a better form of transportation over the course of the book.
You can be sure that they will. Like the Ardents, led by Navani, are probably like working really hard on figuring out how to make it more efficient and quicker. Mm. And then when they did arrive at Urithiru,
the tower.
When they did arrive at the tower, and Kaladin is showing his parents through the walkways and everything, and they're looking at the strata. They're looking at these like weird pipes that are right in the middle of the walkway and everything. It must feel so alien and weird to them, you know.
Yeah.
There's probably not a lot of like cave systems or anything, I would assume. And this is probably like almost feeling like really oppressive with this giant tower, and they're walking through these little hallways.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. And like, especially the strata everywhere, I guess they're probably really mesmerizing and awesome to look at, beautiful to look at, but they're also really weird. Especially like how they talk about, how can there be green strata here? And apparently Hesina says it's iron causing that, so some sort of iron oxide. I have no idea whether that's plausible or not. But yeah, it's interesting that they are knowledgeable enough to know that. It's also cool. Like they're really educated people, Kaladin's parents.
Yeah, they're kind of like scientists in their own way. I actually found that part really interesting, that they were talking specifically about iron. Like it seems like that was a very deliberate conversation that they had. And that brought me back to the epigraph in chapter 11, where they were talking about iron being used in a fabrial as an attractor. And I was wondering if the strata and the iron and all these different metals weaving through the walls are like parts of a giant fabrial. That's like where my mind immediately went when they were talking about that.
I didn't even consider that, but it would make a lot of sense, especially if it's iron and like an attractor. Maybe that is what is keeping the atmosphere thicker around Urithiru,
or warmer in certain
warm and stuff like that,
or something. Yeah.
I really like that idea.
Yeah,
definitely see that. Yeah,
because I'm so obsessed with this idea that the cage actually goes through the fabrial. It's not just around it, like it's woven through and stuff. So then veins inside the walls of the building definitely makes sense to me as being part of the cage.
I mean, and also like it being veins, like literal or body veins almost. And the way that they have like this, I don't know, tube or whatever it is going right through the hallway. For one, it definitely has exudes a lot more Urithiru was grown in some way vibes to me, because like, I mean, if you were an actual architect and were to put where to build a hallway, you wouldn't just put something right in the middle. So I feel like there's definitely more to that than meets the eye.
Well, the tower always feels like a heart or something, because it's got these chambers, it's got, arteries and vein looking things. There's these little air ducts that they think connect rooms together randomly and stuff. So it just feels like there was something supposed to be going through those, which I thought was kind of an interesting idea. And then it brought me to, weird one here. So when I watch like Jurassic Park, and they make the 3D print the raptor like vocal cords or whatever, and he blows through it and it creates the sound. I was like, what if that happens with the tower? Like, what if something goes through it and creates like a tone or something?
Okay,
like it's a huge instrument or something.
But that'd be really awesome.
And I was just thinking about that.
There's that theory actually going around that like the dawn charts are actually instruments or something like that.
Oh.
So Eurythia is just one giant dawn chart that.
I mean, it fits the theme of Roshar.
Yeah. I mean, especially like how it's also described as these strata, when they end, they sort of slope downward, and Kaladin describes them almost like lapping waves that also just screams, okay, there's rhythms and waves going on here. It's all sort of sound, or I guess wave-based in some form. So
and I wonder, like, because they talk about different varying levels of red in previous chapters, and I'm wondering if that's like different concentrations of metal in the walls, or something going on there.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have so many theories, but I don't really know at all.
Yeah, it's really hard, I feel, to guess at stuff right now, because like we know a lot of stuff, like how it looks externally, but we don't really know how any of it might work. So yeah, but Navani will find out for us, because she also will ask all these questions for us. So
yes,
that'd be really
Thank
good.
you, Navani.
But what these sort of like how Kaladin mentioned, these rooms that only have one small opening that you could only look through and stuff like that, what it also made me think of is that maybe it's also some stuff to maybe accommodate the Spren there, because like obviously a Spren wouldn't have a problem going through a little hole, or not as much of a problem. So maybe it's in some form like a show of respect to the Spren, like they can have their own private spaces.
I could see that. I was actually thinking like little creatures or something, like if it's designed to let like crumblings go around or something. I
mean, we do know that the Sleepless were okay, that's like really crackpot land right now, but we know that the Sleepless were affiliated with the Knights Radiant in the past, and maybe they used the Hordlings as little messengers, and
it just creeps me out just thinking about it.
It's like they would attach a little, slip of paper to them and send them around, and that's what this tube, for instance, is for. They just run around and
maybe. But it is true. Like, it's a very weird thing to have like a pipe going right in the middle of a walkway, like Kaladin is thinking in this. So there's, and it seems deliberate too. Like it seems like it needs to be there. If it wouldn't be there if it wasn't supposed to be there, right? So
I have another, but I won't say.
Oh no! Why not? Go ahead.
Okay, so the stone, it's actually some sort of skeleton. All these weird structures, and
like an exoskeleton or something.
Yeah, and like the stone just sort of grew around it, and I don't know. But let's not go there.
I mean, really, any theory is valid until it's disproven.
Yeah, I mean,
it's exciting.
Mecha Eurythru would be almost as or even more awesome, I feel, than spaceship Eurythru. So
it's a creature.
Yeah. Of course, at the very end, we do have Kaladin and Lyrian talking about surgery in general, and like I was wondering this in general, how I guess useless or useful Lyrian felt after he saw the Edge Dancers, and I don't think there were Truth Watchers among them, but the Edge Dancers, apart from Renarin, the Edge Dancers healing people in Hearthstone, and it's good to finally see him that he felt really bad about it and felt like his work was pointless now.
But Kaladin is reassuring him, like, there are things that we still need surgeons for. First of all, we only have a few of them and they're all in battle. So you need to be here to help other people, And then he also mentioned they can't heal old wounds and things like that. And they even mentioned earlier in the chapter, they mentioned that there's a vaccine for certain diseases. They're developing, like they infect them with a very weak strain of a disease and it makes them immune to others. So there's all sorts of things that, doctors are needed for. So maybe this will turn it from being, the town surgeon to being more of like a doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like in general, we just get to witness a lot of, like, we have these fabrial advancements and now we get medical advancements, and just in general, we see a lot of scientific work being done, and them figuring out stuff that is in some ways, of course, parallel to what we have in the real lives. Like we have the smallpox vaccine was discovered in a similar way. So yeah, it's just really cool, I feel, to see all these like little details that tell us that these people are quite advanced already.
Yeah, it's kind of grounding, like giving us an idea of where they're at and where they can go because our own history. And there's a little bit of foreshadowing, I think, in this chapter, because Kaladin wouldn't be setting up a whole surgery for Liren and then they're not going to use it at the end of the book,
Yeah.
So he's going to be going into the surgery and working with Liren, and he's going to be learning and everything. And then there's going to be some kind of big tragedy or something that happens, and they're going to be using this surgery together. This is my prediction. Yeah. I feel like it's setting you up for seeing Kaladin as a surgeon again.
It also just makes me fear for Liren's death a lot more, because like we know now that we'll see more of Liren in this book, and Kaladin will be around him. So I think that at least Liren will be in peril at some point in this book.
And the fused are making their way towards them. So yeah, it's kind of all coming to a point at the end of this part. So anything else you wanted to talk about in chapter 18?
One final thing, maybe it's just that was just an interesting tidbit, I feel, is that there's only 3 Truth Watchers right now. And I'm not even sure if they include Renarin there or not, but it's still like interesting that we only have 3 of them. Because all the other orders at least seem to be in that, like, there are dozens of them by now. So I wonder whether the Truth Watchers Bren were like, I don't know, they have some problems with bonding, or they're still feeling reluctant, or what's going on there?
My theory about that is, okay, you see mostly Windrunners and even Light Weavers, and they both have Kaladin and Shallan, and they're pretty good leaders. Like they're kind of, the head of that order at the moment. So I feel like with the Truth Watchers, we have Renarin, and he's not really, he's not, I don't want to say like a full Truth Watcher, because obviously he is, but he's got some weird things going on, basically. Yeah. And so maybe like Knights Radiant is kind of like a contagious thing. Once you get one, then they start popping up here and there. And so maybe the fact that Renarin is a little different with his abilities, maybe that's making it a little more difficult to find other Truth Watchers.
Yeah.
Do we know who the other 2 Truth Watchers are?
I cannot remember. I think the Stump was a Truth Watcher. Yeah, the Stump is a Truth Watcher.
That's right. Yeah,
she isn't that chance.
And she was brought to the tower, I think.
Yeah. So if there's only 3, then we already know 2. So there's only 1 left. But if Renan is the next one, I guess we have another 2 to find out. But yeah, like when you said that maybe it has to do with Gliss and his corruption or his enlightenment, I wonder whether maybe the Truth Watchers Bren just fear being corrupted. Like they see that Gliss has been affected, and maybe they think, okay, maybe we are more susceptible to this, and are more careful with forming bonds. could also see that happening. But yeah, I definitely love to see more Truth Watchers, but I guess not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, it is nice to see that they have a bunch, like a good amount of edge dancers. 30, I think they said. Yeah, that's
50
that's
even,
good. They're
I think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They seem like, in my opinion, the OP like people, like can slide around and heal everybody, and like slide over here, heal you, slide over here.
Basically, Lucio and
yes, exactly. That was my main.
Yeah.
No, I really like the edge dancers, and it's good to see that we have a good amount of them.
Yep. And I mean, it fits with like in one of the like the Words of Radiance, I think, says that usually one village or town had an edge dancer dedicated to it. So it feels like there would be more of them, and like they really go out there and take care of the people. So
yeah, they're good guys.
Definitely.
All right. That was chapter 18 of Rhythm of War. You can find all of these preview chapters at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Tor.com. We'll also let you know on 17thshard.com right at 9 o'clock when they come out. And the audiobook chapters are also being released on Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel. So check those out if you're audiobook preference. And you can come discuss all these chapters with us on our Discord, on the forums, in the comments, wherever you'd like. We'd love to hear from you. Bye.
See you next week.